Hi friends, it's Kay. Welcome or welcome back to my channel, and today I have my favorite video of the year and also simultaneously the most semi-stressful because I am bringing to you my top 10 books of 2023, and the kicker is that I only have about 5 of them in person. So 2023 was my year of romance, or more specifically historical romance, because I had so many amazing historical romance reads, and you are going to see by this pile how I was feeling this year, because to me these books are what made me happy or made me feel super emotional, but in a really bittersweet way more than just a sad way, if that makes sense. And honestly, for me, reading historical romance just makes me happy, and I love just everything about it. It makes me happy. And this was the year I stopped feeling ashamed or just felt like I need to hide that. So, without further ado, I am here to bring you my top 10 books of 2023 in my big year of reading historical romances. And honestly, I feel like the Belle cardigan is really selling it for me, because so many of these have Beauty and the Beast elements, and that made me super happy. But first, before we do anything else, let me bring to you my honorable mentions. These are the books that were not quite top 10, but I still really wanted to mention here. And the first of that is Nocturne. First of all, this cover. Everything about this cover to me, beautiful, gorgeous, show-stopping, never been seen before. I love a good ballet cover. And I just happened to be lucky enough to win this arc. And I actually read this book as an e-arc from NetGalley on my Kindle. And then about a few weeks later, I won a giveaway for a physical arc. And I love that I own this. I love it so much. And the writing in here, stunning. There is Beauty and the Beast elements, Phantom of the Opera elements, Hades Persephone elements, and so much ballet. And the feeling I got reading this book felt like being on a stage. And this whole thing was just gothic and gorgeous, and highly recommend this if you want to read it in the winter time. And then my next honorable mention is Take the Lead. And due to this book, I went into a weird Dancing with the Stars spiral. And that's kind of funny because I don't normally watch that, but because of this book, I started watching season 31 of Dancing with the Stars. The chemistry of this romance, because dance is a very passionate sport. And these two, one is a reality TV star from the Gruff of Alaska and his partner on a TV dance competition. And just the tension. Say less. If you're into romance and you semi-love reality TV and dance and just a gorgeous pairing, pick this up, because I've not heard near enough people talk about it, and I am screeching over it. Now, into my top 10 reads of the year. Most of these are 5 stars. Some of them are not, but just the feelings that they gave me and just how they have stayed on my mind this entire year, I have to mention them. So coming in at number 10 is The Belle of Belgrave Square, and this is, as you might guess from the title, a Beauty and the Beast retelling with a grumpy sunshine dynamic, a marriage of convenience, and a single dad trope, which is my particular brand of historical romance in general, but just this one just worked so amazing. We also have a heroine who loves books, loves going to the bookstore, loves reading and writing courses, and our hero actually, kind of spoiler territory, so I can't say too much, but if you want to have a really creative mistaken identity trope or hidden identity trope and secret author and that kind of aspect, I highly recommend. I feel like my Goodreads review of this book says it best. A historical romance with a marriage of convenience, a single dad, parallels to Beauty and the Beast. Can't get better, right? Now throw in a sprinkle of grumpy sunshine and that she is the first person he lets his guard down with in years, making him utterly love-struck around her. And as a treat, there's even a one-bed trope directly after their rushed marriage. Yeah, Julia and Jasper served all those tropes, and this book will now become my entire personality. I could not stop reading this book. It was amazing, delightful, and if you are a fan of historical romance or Beauty and the Beast retellings, or just Grumpy Sunshine, I highly recommend you go check this one out. So honestly, I think this video, just because all of these books have pretty decent reviews, and hopefully I can jog my memory and add something else to it, but technically if I'm reading the review, they're still my words. So we're gonna do that. Coming in at number 9 is The Sweetest Connection, and this is a novella, which I wasn't sure if I could put it in my top 10, but then I remembered, I make these rules. I can do it if I want to. So this is actually one of the books I read when I was on my plane to Iceland. So reading this on a plane was just next level, completely next level. And honestly, the memories I have attached reading it on the plane probably helped with the vibe and why I love this book so much, but it was also the sweetest best friends to lovers trope, and one of our characters actually works in a candy store, and I've never personally seen that in an airport, but after reading this book, I desperately wanted to find a candy store in an airport. So what I had to say about this one was, this was the sweetest, no pun intended, best friends to lovers story, and made me want a job in an airport. The pining and banter between Silas and Tegan is a staple of why I love this trope. The addition of them investigating who wrote a love note paralleling their situation was such a fun plotline. That's right. So in this book, not only are our two besties pining after each other, but they also find a love note and an ungiven love confession, and they are trying to figure out who dropped it and who it could be written to. So on top of all of this super sweet and entertaining pining, there is also a investigation going on to track down who wrote these love notes, and the ending, you actually find out who it is, even though they don't necessarily, or do they? Maybe you have to read to find out. Okay, so this next one is actually one of the Book of the Month picks I got back when I first got Book of the Month. So look at me clearing my Book of the Month backlist TBR, and I have so much more to go on that, but that is not for this video. That is for another video. But this is also one of my favorite covers, and I knew as soon as I got this as a pick, I was going to love it, and I am so happy to know I was right. And that is Peach Blossom Spring. My history lover heart, as well as the storyteller in me, just adored this book, because not only was I learning about a period of history where I really do not know much about, it was some of the Chinese War and how a lot of them fled to Taiwan and about all that, but there was also just the way that this book pulled at your heartstrings, and the quotes were just absolutely gorgeous in here. And I listened to this via audiobook, and I haven't had a chance to get through and put the rest of my tabs in, but just the writing in here was beautiful. And not to mention Peach Blossom Spring, I love when a book ties back into the title through some motif throughout the story, and for that, that is the actual story of Peach Blossom Spring, which was passed down from mother to son and son to daughter, and how in the end all three of their lives circled back to each other and paralleled in a really beautiful way. And honestly, I can say it best. There were so many elements of this story I connected with, especially since I was listening to Lily, who is the granddaughter of our first protagonist. I was listening to Lily pursue a career as a teacher, and I was listening to the audiobook to set up my classroom. Melissa Fu wrote this with so much heart, and to know it was inspired based on her father's story made it even more beautiful. The last page of this book actually made me want to cry because of the conclusion it drew. So in this book, we start in 1930s China, and there is a young wife, Meilin, who is now been widowed, and her son are forced to flee the country as war breaks out. And once they escape to Taiwan, her son is given the opportunity to go across the world to study in America for college. And while he's there, he settles down as Henry. And while there, he has a family of his own and his own experiences. And his daughter Lily is desperate to learn about her heritage and where she came from, but her father is tight-lipped about his past. And we follow the internal trauma that can be passed through generations, the struggle of different cultures in America trying to connect with who they once were and who they are now, and also the children of these immigrants who are trying to fit in despite not knowing where they came from. I loved this book. I don't hear near enough people talk about it, and if you love historical fiction or just a family saga, then go check this one out. Coming in at number 7 is The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren, and this is another hit from Christina Lauren. If you have been on this channel for a while, you might remember that The Unhoneymooners was my second favorite book of 2021, and Ethan, still a book boyfriend that I treasure. And River is written from the same cloth, or the author duo wrote the same. You might also sense a trend, but I love single parents in books, because not only is the relationship so much more heartfelt, because not only are you creating a romantic relationship, you are creating a found family as well, and to me, it just makes me so emotional. So in this book, also, the tabs. Can we see the tabs? Because I'm proud of them. We are following two characters who are in STEM, which honestly elevated this experience for me too, because that's another thing I just love. But in this, we are following a single mom and a number cruncher, data analyst, Jess, and because she is feeling kind of lonely, kind of just wanting to get back into the dating scene, she submits a sample of her DNA to this online dating forum, and lo and behold, she has been matched with the CEO who created the software, and who she also had a not so meet cute with in a coffee shop earlier to submitting her test. They are also a almost perfect 100% match, which is not heard of. So of course there is huge popularity, a rise. So in order to capitalize on this rare, unheard of match, not only just because of the number percentage of how much they're compatible, but also because he is the founder of this company, the two of them are now fake dating, and slowly but surely found family in this is one of the reasons I love this book so much. And oh my gosh, where is it? I just have to read the quote. Oh my gosh, I love reading back through things. Also, just the bonding between River and Juno, who is Jess's daughter. I was sobbing. Actually sobbing. Okay, here it is. This is the quote. This is the romance quote that solidified this book for me. I haven't been home in years, but I felt that way with you. And I'm crying again. And now, coming in at number 6. This might be, to date, quote me on this, this might be the best book review I have ever written. The best Bookstagram post I have ever done. And that is for Orphans on the Train. This was an arc that I was sent because I was part of the book influencer tour for the release of this book. And I just love historical fiction. I love historical fiction. And World War II, to me, is just such an interesting, complex time period because, yes, most of the time in books, it is predominantly the Western front and more Western perspective and all that. But there's so many perspectives that can be explored, so many avenues you can take, and just the reason that historical fiction in this time period in particular I do adore, and I feel like so many other people love reading about, and it keeps getting written about, is because there's so much you can do with it. So in this book, we are going from Scotland to Hungary. And I'm not even going to try to summarize this book anymore because the title of this alone and how you see this title and story play out, just amazing. And I'm going to read the review because I cannot say it literally any better. So let me start by saying I adore this book and the stories it brings to light. I have never read a World War II book set in Hungary, and prior to visiting Budapest last fall, was ignorant to the extent of the brutality faced by its Jewish and other citizens during Nazi occupation and the Arrow Cross's reign of terror. A horror immediately followed by the Soviet communist occupation until the fall of the Iron Curtain and the official independence in the early 1990s. You cannot visit this city without seeing its history displayed in the form of monuments, museums, and even its public transportation system. This author captured the tone needed to convey the anxiety and the terror of the city at this time, while keeping you as a reader enthralled in the story, that once the events started rolling, you cannot look away. I loved watching Christy, who was our main character in this. I loved watching her grow from an orphaned 14-year-old girl into a savvy 19-year-old woman who is loyal, determined to stand for what's right, and strategic enough to not only keep herself alive, but her Jewish best friend as well. The on-page description of Christy and Anna's friendship is so real. It's not one that's perfect, and you see them have to work out big issues, but at the end of the day, they love each other so much and are each other's chosen, found family. I also greatly appreciated the message of showing kindness and mercy to those who have greatly wronged you that was touched upon. It is so essential to both the Christian and Jewish faith, and I love how it was woven into the story in such a tactful manner. Lastly, where she took the story in the last 10%, my jaw was dropped because the key is in the summary of why my jaw was dropped. Also, the research that she put into this book was just phenomenal, and I loved reading the author's notes to learn more about her process on how she crafted these characters in this story. And coming up at number 5 in my top 10 books of the year is A Botanist Guide to Parties and Poisons, and I read this in a vlog. I actually read this in a vlog this year, and it was one of the first vlogs I did in 2023, and this was the second book I read, but this book has not left my brain the entirety of the year. I adored this book. It combined so many of my loves. It combined science and botany and history and poetry and literature, and just the characters were so amazingly described and dimensional, and honestly, they were so relatable to me. If you want to hear more of my in-depth thoughts on this book, go check out that blog that I'll link above and below. In this book, we are following Saffron Everly, who, queen, love her. Saffron is a research assistant, and she is attending this dinner party where one of the guests drops dead. Typical, right? This woman was poisoned by an unknown toxin, and now she herself took on the responsibility of helping the police without their actual need of help to solve this mystery of what the toxin is, who could have done it, that kind of thing. And the reason why she's taken it upon herself to solve this mystery is because her mentor is getting the blame put on him for doing it. So she's not going to let that happen on her watch. So joins together with Alexander Ashton, which this man, y'all. A fellow researcher, she uses her knowledge of botany and explores the greenhouses, dark gardens, and deadly poisons. And this book completely transported me into 1920s London. And then the chemistry between Saffron and Alex was just absolute fire. And not to mention, if you're a big fan of the one of them gets sick and the other nurses them back to health trope, just this book served that so well. And also what completely shocked me while reading the author's note is that she completely researched and created her own plant. And as someone with an environmental degree, I was low-key convinced this plant existed in the world somewhere. And the creativity behind it just made me love this book even more. I have not picked up the sequel yet, and the third book is coming out in 2024. And I just need to continue with this because I love this world and these characters and this ship so much. And the next cover and the cover after that are just gorgeous, which also just aids to my need to read it. And apparently this was also just my year of reading short books because coming in at number 4 is another novella that is part of a standalone companion series, and it's Married by Scandal. And this book is also kind of a novella set in another world that this author has written that I also really want to read. And this book just kind of bumped that priority up for me. But this book literally, it had me giggling and just containing a smile the entire time I read it because it was so cute. And not to mention the fact that on Instagram somewhere, I read that the author actually based the character of Dante on Lloyd from Spy Family, and just she did really good because that man was swoon worthy. Okay, low-key, I'm hilarious. Okay, so this book had me giggling and grinning the entire time. Emily is the queen of witty comebacks, and the growth she endures in this story is great. Dante is so swoon-worthy. If I found a man who describes me with half the quotes Dante describes Emily with, I would marry him on sight. Moral of this review is pick it up. Have I convinced any of you yet? I really hope so. Not to mention, this is a fantasy romance, but a gay historical romance vibes. Dante carries around a cane, and they have suits and dresses, and it's kind of like prim and proper society from the Regency era, but set in a Feyland, and just I loved that aspect of it. So in this world, Emily is the sister to the Queen of Fairy. She has found herself in a bit of a scandal, and in order to avoid any more scrutiny or just spiraling, she agrees to marry a human prince in order to keep peace between her sisters, Feyland and the human realm. And except the prince might not be the prince. And now Emily is thrust into a world of spy operations, and she is now having to work together with her partner, Dante. I feel like I've been talking forever. I just hope that some of the words coming out of my mouth have made sense because, frankly, I could not say what I've said. I had the struggle of my life deciding my top 10 order because numbers 3 through 1 are tied. And I love them all for different reasons, and they all made me feel different things. But overall, the reason that they're all just, they gave me that feeling, you know? The feeling where you fall in love with reading all over again, you can't stop smiling, you are just having the time of your life in this fictional world, and you do not want to come back to reality no matter how much you need to. That's the feeling all 3 of these books gave me. And just know that the order is the order, but 3 and 2 are essentially tied completely, and number 1 is number 1 by kind of marginally, but I have decided it is my favorite book, and I think it's really fitting why it's my favorite book. So coming in at number 3 is actually a 2024 ARC that I received and actually read early because that is coming out by the time this video is up. It should be out because that is Dungeons and Drama, and this book, best YA I have read all year. I did not expect to become as invested in this story as I did. I thought it was going to be a cute, fun time that I'd love in the moment. No, this book, I devoured it. It became my personality. I talked to like all my real life friends, and I told them the second this book goes on sale, they need to read it because this book was my high school friendships and my experiences just kind of encapsulated into one book that felt like it was written for me. So in this book, we are following Riley, and she is a giant musical theater lover. The theater is her life. She loves musicals. She even kind of stole her parents' car in order to go see a musical without permission. Yeah, so she's in trouble for that, and her punishment is to work at her father's game shop, and she's not a gamer. She's not into that world. But she and her father are kind of estranged. She feels like he has chosen this game store and these games and board games over her and her mom, and that is one of the reasons why her parents divorced in the first place, so she holds a bit of resentment towards them for that. But by working at this shop, they might be able to bridge their relationship and repair it. And while she's there, she is having to be a co-worker with this boy from her school who is not in the it crowd. He is kind of a social outcast, and really, they don't like each other. But then they have to fake date because he is hung up on another gamer girl, and she is trying to show her ex that she has truly and fully moved on. So now the two of them are in this fake dating relationship. So good. So good. I found the theme. I think I just like being happy. I am not exaggerating when I say I giggled or smiled during every chapter, and the fake dating angst was top tier. Riley and Nathan mean everything to me, and I loved reading about their characters as well as all the shenanigans the friend group got up to during D&D sessions. I could ramble about my love for this book more, but honestly, all you need to know is I loved it. This book also gave me all the nostalgia feels over high school, which is so weird because I'm only 22. Now, number two, if you had told me if you had told me in the beginning of the year this would be my number two, fighting number one spot on this list, I would have laughed at you because really, Kate? But no, listen, you do not understand it. This book grabbed me hook, line, and sinker. It was written for me because not only is the main couple in this to die for, they are so pure. They were written for me. I honestly picked this up thinking it was just going to be a fun little fantasy romance. No, I devoured this in one day. One day. And I had to put it down for, basic life things. And I was so mad. I just wanted to pick this book up and finish it. I bought a copy from Barnes & Noble because I knew I had to have this on my shelves. And if I ever look at my real life friends and explain to them why I love this book, they would never understand. No one would understand. But this book, Wolf Gone Wild, the first in the Stay a Spell series, yeah, this is my life now. All the feels. Mateo, literally written for me. He is 100% my biggest fictional crush of this year. He is such a cinnamon roll, and the fact that he is fighting his literal inner demon, aka Alpha. Look, if it sounds cringy, it probably might be for some. It probably will. And I know a lot of people got annoyed with Alpha in this book and Alpha and Mateo's dynamic, but listen, I was laughing out loud the entire time I read this. I was in with my family and vacation. I was in the car with them for 4 hours at a time reading this book, and I was laughing so many times because this book just it hit. And then Edie, she is me. She is so K-coded, it's not even funny. And the fact that the two of them together are such a sweet, cute, but also angsty couple, like obsessed. And I read the second Stay a Spell series, and I was like, maybe my love for them diminished. No, that entire book, I was looking for their crumbs. I will be looking for crumbs the entire rest of this series because I love them so much. There's just something about a soft boy who is absolutely head over heels for his girl and makes sure she knows how special she is. That's right, yeah. So the dynamic between Alpha and Mateo gave me Moon Knight vibes, like Mark and Khonshu. That whole dynamic, that is what Alpha and Mateo gave me, and I think that's why I loved it so much. Peak comedy. Did I tell you what that book was about at all? No. Now, what you've all been waiting for. My number one favorite book of 2023, and that is No Earls Allowed. I am obsessed with this author now. Earlier this year, I read Third Sons of Charm, which is the first in the Survivor series, and this is book number 2 in that. And in this book, we have just all the tropes in historical romance and that I adore. We have tortured war hero lady who is trying to do the best she can with the resources she has to make life better for someone else. And in this case, that is the orphanage that she runs. And she is being denied funding. She is being kind of threatened by the gang boss that is in charge of this town. She's trying to keep these boys out of trouble and keep them on the straight and narrow path. And our mailman character is the illegitimate son of a Marquess, and he has just come back from a war. Him and the fleet that he led, called the Survivors, were sent on suicide missions basically in order to help the crown against Napoleon's war. And he has come back. He's very tortured and just has so much PTSD from what he went through, the friends he saw die, who was hurt or worse under his commands and his orders. And he feels just so closed off and isolated. And he ends up at this orphanage where Lady Juliana, or Julie, is running this orphanage that is in shambles, and he is going to help her repair it and fix it and try to help keep them afloat. And no one can know because they are in a forced proximity in a time where that was super scandalous and where that would force them both essentially to be married. And he does not want that because he refuses to put her through that and through a marriage like that when he himself has been ridiculed by society this entire time. It's so good. It's so good, you guys. I did read this on my plane to Iceland, and I had on my Gothic Waltz playlist. And as Neil's backstory is being revealed to us as the reader, I had the most epic Gothic Waltz crescendo happen, and it was amazing. And also, I just have a soft spot for men who are so guarded and close-hearted and cold to everyone else, but then they see a group of kids and he takes it upon himself to help them and just keep their spirits up and just train them like he would a regiment, and it was just so soft and so pure. And he essentially makes them start pulling their weight around this orphanage to help Julie stay afloat, and their dynamic was just everything. Like I said, this just had the formula to be a perfect read for me. It had the tropes I loved. It had so many amazing elements to it, and I am so happy that this was my favorite book of 2023. Alright, I feel like I've been talking forever, but these are the physical copies I own of my favorite reads of this year. I cannot wait to go into this next year of reading. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this video and for sticking around and listening to me gush and maybe incoherently explain why these books are my favorites of the year. Let me know in the comments what your favorite read of 2023 was, or what your favorite reads of 2023 were. I know it can be hard to narrow it down to one, as you have seen from me. And if you want to find me elsewhere, my social medias are linked below. And if you want to get more content from me, please consider hitting the subscribe button and joining my bookish corner of the interweb. Until next time, I'm McKay. Bye!